Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, welcome. In today's video, I want to add to my inner child series by discussing reparenting. However, before we get started on the topic of today's video, I wanted to address a recent change to my YouTube channel. If you're not new here, I'm sure you're well aware that I've recently changed the name of my channel from Soul Care to Amanda Machado, which is my name. And I've also changed my Instagram label to Amanda My Shadow, because Amanda Machado is a very common name, so I highly doubt that I'll be able to get an Instagram handle with that. So I just went with a nickname from my early adolescence. I had a friend who nicknamed me My Shadow. So, and that's just because Machado sounds really similar to My Shadow. So today's video, like I said, it's an addition to the Inner Child series. We started in video 1, which was the introduction to inner child work, which was all about really building a relationship and a connection with our inner child and building their trust. And in the second video, we explored a couple of different dark feminine archetypes, and that was to explore empowerment for ourselves. So today we're going to be discussing reparenting with the archetype of the Emperor. And I really, as a homage, I want to discuss Hades, the god Hades, a beautiful face of the sacred masculine as well as dark masculine, if you will. So I call him Hades, Idonius, as well as Pluto or Pluton. And I've been connecting with him energetically for quite a while now, since last spring. So we're going on almost a year now. However, he came back around in September, right before I had some significant changes in my life to help me navigate them. And Hades is a wonderful energy for that. He's excellent at navigating significant life changes, and he's excellent for doing grief work surrounding those significant changes, the death energies, right? Anything dying in your life, those endings and new beginnings. He's excellent for those types of major transitions in our lives. And I think that this topic is no exception. Reparenting is an excellent way to really connect with Hades. And I feel like very few people really talk about Hades too. He's a very misunderstood deity, and he's just a wonderful, wonderful energy. I couldn't talk more about him. He is just a very sweet energy. The more you get to know him, I feel like he has layers. He gets a lot more opening and inviting, if that makes sense. So energetically, I do really enjoy his energy. He's an excellent guide as well when we're going through those changes, like I mentioned. So I experienced him as a face of the Emperor archetype. He came with all the traditional Emperor aspects, being the god of the underworld, being the god of the dead. You do see a lot of the traditional qualities of the Emperor within Hades in the myths. And his energy speaks a lot about responsibility. It speaks a lot about maintenance, really important aspects of our lives. And it wasn't just about that. It was also, what does it mean to be a parent to you? What does it mean to be a mother or father? He also clarified that personally with me, I didn't just have issues when it came to my upbringing with my father. He clarified that there were also issues with my mother as well. And then the energy, it shifted to really focusing on parenting and reparenting. I find that this work is very helpful when you have children and you have a significant amount of childhood trauma. It helped me show up for not only myself in ways that my parents never showed up for me, but it also helps me show up for my daughter in ways that my parents never showed up for myself. So I appreciate that this type of work exists and that I've been able to find it and connect with others this way as well who might suffer from a similar childhood. And I'm thankful to be able to create these videos for you as well and connect with you if you share a similar childhood. Not only did his energy really teach about the importance of responsibilities and maintenance, it really does teach about seeing the magic and the beauty within the mundane, within the everyday, and it talks a lot about balance as well. So I think that these are really important aspects, a lot more important than we give credit. So some very helpful tools that I like to use when connecting with Pluton or Hades in regards to this type of work is tarot and oracle can be very effective. I would recommend that you use anything that you're intuitively drawn to, as we're talking about doing shadow work. Inner child work is a form of shadow work. So we're really looking for something that we can connect to our subconscious, we can connect intuitively with. I always found the Wild Unknown Tarot to be really effective at helping me address emotions and thoughts, ideas that come from my childhood or my subconscious. And that's really the goal of shadow work, is we're really trying to dive into the subconscious mind and we're trying to bring these things to the surface so that we can address them and integrate them. So I find this deck to be particularly confrontational, and it makes it very effective at helping me bring things up. A lot of emotions come to the surface when I work with this deck. It really likes to talk about my father issues, for lack of a better word, any issues that I'm currently having with my father. Back in October, here in Canada, we celebrate Thanksgiving in October. And when I showed up with my family, my father was absolutely wasted. And ever since then, I found myself in a position where I had to stop talking to him. And I find that this deck likes to talk about that. It likes to talk about the grief that I have. This was not a decision that I wanted to make. And I thought because I get angry, and then like there are definitely easier days and there are harder days, and I find that I expected to feel better when I made this decision, but initially it was very difficult. I didn't want to make this decision. I made it because I felt that I had to make this decision to protect my daughter, to protect my family, to protect my husband. and to protect myself. I didn't want to have to deal with that situation anymore. I was over it, you know. I just turned 34 years old, and you know, I've been over this situation a long time ago. And like I said, it's there are easy days, there are harder days, and I really struggle a lot with his absence. He's my father. I love him. But another situation that occurred because we're no longer talking to my father, who is an abusive alcoholic towards my mother and us, is we lost our mother to a certain extent. My mom isn't really allowed to see us. We didn't disconnect from her. We still kept the door open for her. However, when we excommunicated my father, that was sort of, it came along with that situation, is now we barely see our mother, me and my sister. So I find that Hades has been a wonderful energy for really navigating the grief that I have around that situation, around not being able to see my mother as much as I want, as much as I need in my life. And I find him to be just very helpful. He is a god of grief. If you're new to Hades, I do find that he is a wonderful deity to work with if you have a lot of grief. If you're dealing with absences, with endings of relationships, if you're grieving somebody that's still alive, I find that he's a very wonderful, wonderful energy for that. And really helping navigate those feelings and dealing with those feelings as well. So another really wonderful deck that it's new to my collection, but I've been really enjoying working with this deck with Hades, is the Dark Wood Tarot. This deck is my underworld. I couldn't feel that it's anything else, to be honest with you. And I feel like your underworld could be anything. It could be an ocean setting. But I do feel like a lot of the imagery, it's underworldy. And this deck connects beautifully with his energy. It's excellent at shadow work too. I find it very helpful for dealing with shadow work and with my grief. It's particularly been very effective at delivering messages regarding my grief. I typically use this deck and another one, which I'll show you next. But before we move on, this is the Dark Wood Tarot. So if you have this kicking around in your collection and you're interested in approaching grief work or reparenting with Hades, I think that this is an excellent deck. This video is supposed to be about reparenting, and I feel like I've just gone on a tangent about grief work. Before I found the Darkwood Tarot, I was using the Antique Anatomy Tarot to communicate with him. So I find that this deck is a little challenging to get to know. It's a little standoffish. I find it a little difficult to connect with, just I think because it is a pip deck, a pip deck. But I do think that this is an excellent deck to work with him, to work with any death aspects of your life as well. It has a lot of death imagery, skulls, as well as a lot of plants, flowers, which are sort of kind of gives you that energy of death. endings and new beginnings. So I do think that this deck is, at least for one or two of you, that, you know, you already have this deck and you're considering approaching this type of work, it might be effective at that as well. For reparenting, I find a lot of what I need to address that comes from my inner child. It comes through tarot and oracle, but it'll also come through as random thoughts and feelings. A lot of journaling. I find journaling to be very effective at helping me understand some of the patterns that I've inherited in my parenting from my parents. Understanding certain aspects of their relationship as well, and how it affects my relationship and how I treat my husband, or even previous relationships as well. How I treat myself even. That's been a huge part of my work regarding reparenting from my mother. It's been a lot of self-care. My mom didn't really put herself first. She put everybody else first. So, and it's something that I struggle with. I've been pretty open about that since I started my journey on YouTube here on this channel. So I find journaling to be honestly excellent at that, and just really reviewing their patterns, looking at what they do and how they treat themselves. Even with my father and his addictions, you know, he just, he taught me certain things too, just by watching him, by observing him treat his body so poorly. It's something that it's easy for you to take on yourself if you're watching this as a child, right? So I find that a lot of those things have come forward, even just in even in conversations with my sister, when we have open discussions about our childhoods, or when even if you were to approach a friend, or if you have even a meditation with your own inner child, they might be able to discuss a lot of the things that they witnessed as children that can be effective and helpful for you on your reparenting journey. I have a lot of shadow work decks, so I might just mention a few more, just so we're not here all day, but I do recommend you work with something that you're intuitively drawn to, as I've already mentioned. I have an oracle deck here called the Soul Mirror, I believe, oracle deck, and this is a wonderful deck to work shadow work with, or to do shadow work with. I've been recently pulling a card a day with my Dark Wood Tarot, with Hades as the primary guide for shadow work, and I'm finding that this deck is wonderful. Recently, as I've already discussed, Hades really wants me to look at my relationships and reparent myself on that. So we're doing a lot of shadow work regarding, you know, relationship dynamics that I witnessed in my childhood and how I'm repeating certain patterns. So those are just some ideas, some things that I found helpful and beneficial during my journey on reparenting. I also recommend the Witch's Tarot by Burning Paper Hearts. If you have this lying around, this is an incredible deck to connect with. I would just pull a card a day. There is nudity in this deck, by the way. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. And he has recently come out with a oracle deck as well, a companion oracle deck, which also has nudity, by the way. but it is an incredible companion to the Witch's Tarot by Burning Paper Hearts. So this deck is, I believe it's called Three Black Moons Oracle. And I'm still getting to know this deck. My journey is more with tarot, or nature, signs and symbols, synchronicities. I know I talked a lot about that, I think in my first or second inner child video. But I just thought they're worth mentioning. These are some of my favorite shadow work decks now. Like I did mention, I do have a lot. The Lantern Oracle, it's published by Blue Angel, is also an excellent deck. I've never mentioned this deck. I've had it for quite a while now. Long time. Is the Whispers of Healing Oracle deck as well. This can be excellent if you're on a healing journey like I am. The Botanical Oracle, I've mentioned this so much on my channel. I love working with this deck intuitively, so it's a must-have for me and my shadow work and my inner child work. So those are all the decks that I wanted to mention. The next thing that I want to discuss is a book. This is a new book. I got it for my birthday from my mother-in-law. As I mentioned in my Lilith video, my birthday just passed. It was on the 9th of March. And I have been wanting this book for a long time. One of my viewers on, I believe, one of my inner child videos, she recommended this book and I absolutely love it. I also have Made into Mother, but I would not recommend that book to you, honestly. But I would recommend this book. I just find this book to be a lot more helpful. The organization, Adult Children of Alcoholics, they've done a lot of work for the community. I'm well aware of their work since my early adolescence. So I was just overjoyed when I found out that they wrote this book. And it's very helpful. There's a lot of helpful information in this book. And I think it's an excellent addition to your reparenting kit. If you're intuitively drawn to the book, if you're comfortable with this organization, if you're familiar with their work as well, I think that this is an excellent addition to your toolkit. If you grew up in a dysfunctional family like I did, or if you grew up in a home like I did as well, I think that this is a must-have. And I couldn't talk more about this book. It's amazing. I'm really enjoying it. Another thing that I did want to address in regards to reparenting is particularly developing your own reparenting or parenting style even. If you're like myself and you have a child or you have children, it's really beneficial to really take a look at how your parents parented yourself and how you want to parent yourself or somebody else. And I don't think you have to have children, by the way, to do this type of work. Of course, you don't have to have children. You can still do all the things that I mentioned, connect with your inner child, and create your own parenting style with your inner child. I would recommend you pursue experiences that you wish that you had. I know personally with myself, when I started raising my daughter, it became very evident very quickly that I was raising my daughter so incredibly different than the way I was raised. And it quickly became about creating those experiences for her that I wish I had. And I feel like you don't have to have a child to do that. I would recommend you go out and do things that you wanted to do as a child. Go to the places that you wished you could go. There are so many things that you could do. There are now adult gaming places. Like, for example, there's a bunch of there's like an indoor activity place called Activate here in Canada. I'm pretty sure they have several locations. Just as an example, there's adult arcades now. If you were somebody that wished you could have attended more arcades, or even just going to an arcade. Camping, just off the top of my head. So there's so many different activities that you can do to connect with your inner child, and sort of like take on that role of being their parent as well. So you can do this also through meditation. I think that there's so many options out there. Get creative, explore different things. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section. I'm going to create a viewer request series. I've already had a couple of questions, so I'm working on that series. So if you've left a comment for me, it is coming. Life is just crazy. I work full time. I'm also a mom, so I'm just trying to balance everything. But it is coming. Don't worry. I have a spring deck list video that I want to do as well. It just doesn't feel like spring here right now in Canada. We are experiencing a second coming of winter for some reason. So we've had a whole bunch of snow this week. It's really cold. So I will create that spring video as soon as it feels like spring again. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.